Hey, I'm Curtis Stone. Now, have I got a cheesy recipe for you? This one's straight out of the South. It's cheesy biscuits, so it's great if you're serving roasted meats or a big baked ham or anything with gravy. All right, here we go. Really simple recipe. You take a bowl, get yourself some flour, and we're going to mix in the flour with some baking powder. Now, quite a bit of baking powder. It calls for 5 teaspoons, which is a tablespoon and 3/4, thereabouts. Okay, so that goes in, and then 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Okay, so put that in, a good pinch of salt. All right, like that much, and then you mix that together. You can sift it if you like. For me, this is sifting. Just mix it all together so it's nicely dispersed through the flour before you add your wetter ingredients. All right, now you'll notice I'm using this guy. It's called a pastry cutter. If you haven't got one of these, you'll do the same kind of a job with a whisk, you know, quite a loose whisk like this, or even a spoon. A wooden spoon will still work. Okay, so once you've got that all combined, the next thing we're going to do is add our wet ingredients. So we're going to start off with our goat's cheese. I'm going to put about half and leave the other half to put in big chunks so you can really see it later on. But this is a nice, soft, quite a moist goat's cheese. So just break that up again with your pastry cutter. And then I'm going to add my cheddar cheese. Okay. Give that a good mix. And lastly, I've got some butter. Of course, it's a southern recipe. It's got to have some butter, right? So you just break up that butter. Now, the reason that the butter's not melted is because you want it to kind of melt as it bakes, all right? So the butter's going to stay in the mix, so then this keeps a really nice moist biscuit. The beautiful thing about biscuits to me is that they've got 2 parts. The outside of them goes really crusty and golden brown, and the inside's super light and fluffy, which is just awesome when you're trying to mop up a little bit of gravy. All right, then what we do is we just make a little well in the center of your dough, get your buttermilk, and pour your buttermilk in. Okay, once that's in, back to your pastry cutter, and you're just going to mix those ingredients together. Now, whatever other ingredients that you think is going to work with these cheesy biscuits, go for it, experiment. I've put everything from bacon to parsley and chives, you know, there's a million different things you can incorporate that are going to add flavour. I'm going to make a really simple version and let the other things that you eat with the biscuits speak for themselves. Now, once this gets nice and sticky, you want to just push out the excess dough there from your pastry cutter, all right? And then, just using your hands, just sort of form it into a nice dough like so. And just before we're ready to pop them into our cast iron pan, grab the rest of your goat's cheese, and I'm just going to mix this through, but leave it in quite large chunks. All right, we are ready to put it in the pan, so I'm going to wash up really quick and show you how to do it. Okay, so now what I did just before I started to make my dough was I got a cast iron pan and popped it in the oven. So it's really quite important. Look at that. In the South, they cook a lot in cast iron. It's great for this particular recipe, for the biscuits, because what you want is for them to go crunchy and brown on top, but also underneath. So I've got just a tablespoon of butter, and I'm going to pop that into my hot pan. So you can see the oven's nice and hot, like 425 degrees. Now, as soon as that starts to melt, what you can do is just pick up your dough like this and literally drop them into your pan. Beautiful. So once you've got them all in your pan, just sort of give them a little push together. What I'm going to do next is wash up and then brush them with a little bit of melted butter. Right, so you can see the sizzle down around the bottom, and when I was talking about the cast iron pan, what it's great at doing is retaining heat. So that heat is going to come from underneath as much as it's going to come from on top, which means you get a beautiful golden biscuit. Butter, so take this little bit of melted butter here, and just with a pastry brush, just liberally brush it over the top, and you'll see these biscuits are going to absorb all of that golden deliciousness. Okay, so once you've got them in the pan, all you need to do is pop them straight into the oven, nice and high, 450 degrees. Oh, look at that. Wafts of deliciousness. Those beautiful, crusty, cheesy biscuits. One last thing to do. What you want to do is get yourself a bit of Parmesan cheese and just grate it and be quite generous with it. So maybe a quarter of a cup of grated Parmesan. And then the heat from them is going to melt the cheese and just give it that last little bit of beautiful salty flavour. So let's pick up one of those. Look at that crustiness underneath. Delicious. I mean, you've got those chunks of goat's cheese that you can still see there. Oh, you want it to be nice and light on the inside, but have that nice cheesy crust on the outside. I'm Curtis Stone, and they're my cheesy biscuits.